Welcome to The Planner's Perspective with Jessie Kara. This is the podcast for wedding planners and couples navigating South Asian weddings and everything that comes with them. Culture, family dynamics, money, design, expectations, and the real conversations no one prepares you for. I'm Jessie Kara, a South Asian wedding planner and educator trusted by couples and families when things get complicated. Here we go beyond timelines and Pinterest boards and talk about what actually happens behind the scenes. If you're a planner stepping into South Asian weddings or a couple who wants to understand the process more deeply, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to The Planner's Perspective. I'm Jessie Kara, a wedding planner and designer specializing in South Asian and Sikh weddings. Today's episode is very important to me because it addresses one of the biggest sources of stress I see for wedding couples regardless of budget. And it's actually about budgets itself. We're talking about how to plan a wedding budget with intention so you don't end up with regret later. This episode is especially for you if you're planning a multi-event wedding week, feeling overwhelmed by where that money is going, or finding yourself thinking, I don't even know if this is what we actually wanted. And you will hear a lot of brides say that after their wedding. If that sounds familiar, you're exactly where you need to be. Here's why talking about budgets matters. I have worked with couples across every budget range, and I can say this with full confidence. A larger budget does not automatically mean less stress. It could actually have the opposite effect. I know some people think that the less you have to work with, the harder it's going to be, but that's not necessarily true. I've seen couples with significant budgets feel completely out of control because there was no structure, no prioritization, and no clarity around why they were spending the way they were and why they were listening to so many outside, different opinions about what their wedding should look like or what they need to do. But we'll leave that for another episode. But by the end of this episode, you'll walk away with a new way to think about your wedding budget, a clearer lens for decision making, and a foundation that helps you move from insight into clarity instead of overwhelm. This is not about cutting costs. It's about spending on purpose. Let's start with why most wedding budgets fail and a few common beliefs that tend to cause the most regret. The first is, we'll figure it out later. Later usually means rushed decisions, emotional spending, and unnecessary stress. Without a plan, your budget stops being a tool and starts becoming reactive. The second belief is, let's just divide everything evenly. Now, not all events hold the same weight. And within those events, not all categories deserve the same investment. Equal does not mean intentional. And if both sets of parents are paying, then equal may not work as they may not have an equal amount of guests or events for it to be fair. And the third is, we have to include everything. Pressure from family, tradition, and comparison can make everything feel mandatory. It's not. I promise you it's not. This isn't about trimming your wedding down. It's about aligning your spending with what actually matters to you. Your wedding should be a reflection of you as individuals and as a couple. So I suggest you start with structure and not numbers. One of the biggest mistakes couples make is jumping straight into numbers. Before you allocate anything, you need structure. And that means getting clear. And you all want to get clear on how many events you're truly hosting. So talk to your parents if they have expectations and how many guests will shift across those events. Because you'll notice in Indian weddings, parents have expectations of, oh, but so-and-so invited me, or I need to invite this person. So these are all things that you want to take into consideration, especially if the funds for the wedding are coming from them. You also want to think about what cultural or religious elements are non-negotiable. This is especially true if you're having a fusion wedding and where family expectations are influencing decision. You can't create a meaningful budget if you haven't defined what you're actually planning. You need to work backwards. A wedding week without structure is where budgets quietly spiral. Next, think in categories, not details. Once the structure is clear, the next shift is how you think about spending. Instead of focusing on individual quotes or line items, I want you to zoom out and think in categories: food and beverage, venues, design and decor, outfits, photography and videography, entertainment, guest experience. Like, there's just a lot to think about. And each category plays a different role in how your wedding feels. What I do with my clients is help them allocate intentionally based on guest experience, which, if you're following me and you're on my socials, you know that is something that I truly value. Emotional significance, because it should be a reflection of you. Visual impact, if you don't want to spend across the whole room, pick points that are important to you that you want to highlight. And then, honestly, at the end of it, logistical reality of actually being able to bring this vision to fruition. Not every category needs to carry the same weight for the wedding to feel incredible. Also, I have couples that value how everything looks, but could care less about if there's food is at a buffet or stations spread out across the room. And then I have others that want to create like this gastronomical experience where guests feel like they're tasting new flavors at every different station throughout the room. That there, we have cocktails that are paired not only in flavor, but also through aesthetically how they're garnished and the colors. But then at the same time, they'll be like, there's still some candles on a table. There is no right way to spend. Every couple has different priorities. Some want the reception to be unforgettable. Some care most about ceremony aesthetics and personal style. And others want a balanced experience across the entire week. The one I usually recommend is building up throughout the wedding week, but there is no correct formula. What matters is that your spending reflects your values, not someone else's expectations. Clarity removes guilt, and guilt is one of the most expensive parts of wedding planning. Regret doesn't come from splurging. It comes from spending money on things that you didn't actually care about. And yes, that's where taking opinions of others, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it really messes with you. We're going to go with that for now, okay? I always encourage couples to identify 2 or 3 areas where they're happy to invest fully. Then consciously decide where you're comfortable pulling back. Maybe fewer events allow for stronger design. Maybe a tighter guest list creates the opportunity to add an after party. Or maybe fewer guests gives you the opportunity to hire a more renowned chef. Maybe simplifying decor allows you to invest in like a photography team that you saw blow up all over TikTok and they're just like amazing and from the other side of the world. Trade-offs aren't compromises. They're confident decisions based on who you are as individuals and as a couple. Because no 2 weddings should look the same. So if there's filters for every budget decision, okay? So before committing to anything, I want you to pause and ask yourself, would we miss this if it wasn't there? Would having, and I know they're not trending anymore, but would having an LED robot really make or break your party? Is that the deciding factor? Like, these are the things I want you to think about, because I want you to think about, are we doing this for us or because it's expected? Is this decision creating clarity or adding pressure? If something feels heavy now, it's going to feel heavier later. Your budget should support you, not weigh you down. When all of this comes together, planning begins to flow, because then vision leads to structure, structure leads to clarity, and clarity leads to confident decisions. Your budget becomes a guide and not a source of anxiety. And that's when planning starts to feel grounded instead of overwhelming. Now, before you move on with your day or turn off this podcast and you move on to your next thing, I want you to take a moment to reflect. If you had to name the top 3 things that truly matter for you for your wedding week, what would they be? And I want you to be completely honest with yourself and not what your partner wants, not what your best friend did at her wedding, not what your sister did at hers, but I want you to be truly honest with what it is that you want for your wedding, not the trends that you see online, but what you want. And don't think about what you think would look good in photos. Don't think about what you see on Instagram and TikTok, or if somebody said you had to do it and it was like the next big thing. I want you to think, what would you regret not prioritizing, and write those down? Because those answers should guide every budget decision you make moving forward. Because if trends is not your thing, then you don't need to be even looking into some of these vendors. If having music is an integral part of your relationship, then entertainment and the DJ is going to play a huge part. So you want to think about that. If you guys are foodies and you're known for trying out all the new restaurants, then obviously what your menu look like is going to be so much more important than, I don't know, bathroom baskets or attendance. It's what makes you you. Because I know wedding planning is hard. And it's especially hard when you're planning with your parents' money or your in-laws' money. And grooms, I know how hard it is when you're trying to give your bride this beautiful reception with everything she wants, but then within the budget that the parents have set. When I was doing wedding decor for 15 years, that was the biggest thing. Like, I would have the grooms come in with the bride, and the bride would tell me, oh, I want this and this and this. And I would turn to him and be like, oh, what do you want? And he wouldn't really have an answer. So my go-to statement was always, let me take a guess. Whatever she wants within your parents' budget. And the answer was always yes. And that is something that you want to keep in mind, because these decisions, they're heavy, okay? And they're the beginning of what the rest of your life looks like, because these conversations around budget and compromise is what is really going to help you determine how you guys move forward with having these conversations as life goes on. Because yes, this is great. It's this, ceremonies are sacred, and then you have this great party. And if you cannot communicate effectively at this stage, things are just going to get harder. So if this episode helps shift how you think about your wedding budget and you're ready to move from insight into clarity, I've created something to support you. The Wedding Budget Clarity Workbook is designed to help you slow things down and make intentional decisions without overwhelm. It's going to guide you through defining your priorities, identifying trade-offs, and creating a budget that feels calm, aligned, and grounded. Now, this isn't about rigid rules or spreadsheets. It's about clarity, confidence, and peace of mind while planning. Work on it with your partner, either together or individually, so you can see what the other one prioritizes, so you can build a united priority list afterwards. The workbook will help you create a clearer picture, so you can go back to that workbook with a more realistic budget based on what you want. And it's going to help you see where you need to cut back in order to make things work. Or it's going to make you say, hold on a second, I think we need to reassess this, and maybe I need to contribute a little bit more to really truly have what I want. You can find the link to it in the show notes. It's completely free. Download it, go through it. And if this episode helped you feel more grounded or supported, or if that workbook really helps you get clear on your budget, I would truly appreciate a 5-star review, or if you could share it with someone who's currently navigating wedding decisions. Because remember, clarity creates calm, and now you have both. If today's episode helped things click or gave you a new perspective, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. This podcast exists to support planners in doing their best work and to help couples feel informed, confident, and prepared as they navigate their very own South Asian wedding. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, an episode idea you'd love to hear, a planning story you want to share, or a question you're sitting with, there's a link in the show notes where you can send it all in. I promise I will read every submission, and many of them will shape future episodes. You can connect with me at www.jessicara.com or on Instagram at jessicara. If you're ready to navigate South Asian weddings with intention and confidence, I'll see you there. And if this podcast is supporting you in any way, I would truly appreciate you taking a moment to leave a 5-star review. It helps more planners and couples find these conversations and keep the space growing. Until next time, trust your perspective and plan with clarity.